Welcome to Growing Empires. I'm Jennifer DeJesus, real estate investor and operator. This show takes you behind the scenes of how real estate assets are executed, managed, and positioned for long-term performance. Let's get into it.
Hey, Jen, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Terry. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So for the listener, welcome back to Growing Empires. And this is a brand new, refreshed, rescoped, reconstructed, renovated, but still what made it great was Jennifer DeJesus. And Jen invited me to come along and help her kick off this brand new Growing Empires with a conversation about Jennifer's journey. So I am Terry Pappy, and I have worked with Jennifer on multiple levels. In fact, we came up with this podcast together, which was kind of fun way back when. And it's been many years we've worked together, and I love seeing her growth. And I'm so glad she invited me in to be part of this wonderful interview series. So what I'd like to do is just go ahead and have a great conversation with you, Jennifer, and we'll bring them up to speed on what you've been doing. But we have to start with the very beginnings, because I don't think you've ever talked about this in your show, is the humble beginnings of your real estate empire and everything that you've done to build your businesses and to grow this into something that's quite incredible today. So what do you say we have some fun and talk about the early days?
Sounds good to me.
I know we're going to have a good time. So I'm going to warn your listener, this could be a little crazy because Jennifer and I like to have a good time. So I hope you'll enjoy our conversation. Let's go ahead and start with the early days. Honestly, I don't think I really had this conversation with you either. So I'm learning as I'm going along too. So walk me through young Jennifer and when you were first looking at starting your business or going into real estate, and why real estate? I mean, kind of bring us up to speed as far as how it all got started. What is your origin story?
Oh, man. Well, I guess you better put your seatbelt on for this one. It's a doozy. Well, let me start by saying that I didn't plan to enter real estate. I was kind of shoved into a position where I had to make a decision, and I'll kind of give you the backstory and how we got to where we are today. So I graduated high school in 1994, dating myself. And, I was an aspiring dancer. I actually intended to go to Juilliard to study dance. I was accepted into Temple University for their dance program, expected to spend 2 years undergrad there and then transfer to Juilliard. But I was 2 months pregnant with my first child before I graduated high school. So that was roadblock and abrupt change number one. There's many, of course, in my history here. So I actually went into the beauty industry. I didn't go to college. I didn't really have any desire to go to college. It's interesting because my mom was a school teacher. So when I told her I wasn't going to college, I thought she was going to have a heart attack. Thankfully, my mother is still living, so I didn't actually kill her. But, I was very much in the American household, grow up, get a good paying job, go to college, work your butt off, work yourself up the ladder. That's what I was taught. That's what my parents lived, and that's what I was taught. But I saw something very different when I was a kid, and it was that my parents literally hated their job. Well, my dad hated his job. My mom loved being a teacher, but as a teacher, you don't make any money. So, she was in this job that, we had to live a very average American household, paycheck to paycheck, because my mom was a school teacher and my dad worked in a factory, and he just absolutely hated his job. So there was two things that were really instrumental in that learning for me. And it's one, that I have to love what I do. And number two is, it doesn't matter how educated you are. It doesn't matter what your college degree is. You are only going to make what somebody allows you to make. And that was always a problem for me. So I didn't go to college for that specific reason. I was not interested. I wanted to go study the arts, and that's why I was intending to go there. But once I learned that that was not an opportunity, I was no longer interested in being in that kind of mold of, go to college, get this high paying job, so on and so forth. I got into the beauty industry. And I got my license. I went to school and got my license. And then after I had the baby, I went to work behind the chair. And I was a hairdresser for well over a decade before I started to progress up the ladder. Now, during that career, I was incredibly successful. I had a huge following. I made a ton of money. It was all commission based, so you can imagine. I definitely was able to create my own destiny, which I loved. And but I started to have trouble with my wrists, and it scared me a little bit because I was young, right? I was 25, 30 years old, and I started having trouble with my wrists and like carpal tunnel. And I was like, this feels to me like this is the end of something. Like this feels to me like, sure, I could go get surgery, but they're never going to work the same. Started to get into management because I thought that that was the next level and a way that I could still stay in my career, still do what I love, but not have to be forced to work with my hands so much so I wouldn't have the pain that I was having with them. So I got into upper level management and I worked my way up the ladder doing that. I was doing trade shows. I used to teach for a Spanish color line, and I traveled up and down the East Coast, and we went out to Chicago and back and forth, and I was doing education. I was doing stage work. So it was interesting because it was quite the transformation to going from behind the chair into management, then into stage shows and trade shows and stuff like that. And I loved what I was doing. My last role in that industry was a district manager for a chain of salons based out of New Jersey. And my job was to help them open the new salon. I would help them locate the salons. I would help them analyze the territories, make sure that they were opening a salon in a good area, a good neighborhood, a good strip center. I would help them build out the salons. And then I would be planted there to get it up and running. So after it was constructed, I would go there, I would hire all the staff, I would train the staff and get it up and running. And then I would go on to the next one. So my job was in upper level management, but it was sourcing and developing new salons for the organization. And that all came to a screeching halt when I was called into the office one Friday afternoon. And I was told I was being downsized because I was the highest paid employee and the company was struggling. So, although they were opening new salons and doing well there, their other salons were struggling hard and they were not able to figure it out. I called into the office on a Friday. I think that I'm getting some accolades for all the things that I was doing for the company because I sure as heck was working my butt off. And I was told, unfortunately, that was not good enough and I was no longer employed. Interestingly enough, I happened to be 7 months pregnant at that time. So
You not only were you kicking butt in your career and helping this company grow in that one side of their business, but you were also taking care of your family and growing your family, which is incredible.
I was. This was my third child by now. It was a very, very rough time. It was very rough. There was probably a 30-day period where I just laid in bed and cried. I didn't know what to do. I was 7 months pregnant. I was very pregnant. I did not hold pregnancy well. So you
Yeah,
knew
I'm
I
sure
was
the
pregnant.
hormones didn't. Yeah, the hormones didn't help your situation when you went from full bore, giving it your all, and then all of a sudden crickets. And it's rough. It is so rough. So
Yeah,
what did you do?
probably not. And I was the breadwinner at home. Like I was the
Mm.
one that it was affording the mortgage and it was a really rough time. So after I went through the woe is me period, which was short-lived, I was just like, listen, the only person that's going to do this is going to be me. So what am I going to do? And I knew from my first experience in being in an industry originally where I controlled my own destiny. I controlled my own outcome. I controlled my own paycheck. And I also controlled when I worked. That was what I was striving for. And because I had a taste of the real estate side, kind of on the backside of that, that to me just was the most logical. I was desperately searching for another career path, another opportunity that allowed me to control my own destiny. Because what I didn't want to do is ever be in that place ever again. That was not going to happen. So I wasn't going to college. I wasn't going to go get a corporate job, and I was not going to be in that position again. So I decided that I was going to get my real estate license. So I took the last 2 months before I had the baby, I got my real estate license. And as soon as I had the baby, I immediately went into real estate and I really dug my heels in and said, this is going to be my career.
Wow. And that was obviously as when you say I kind of already had a taste of real estate, that was from working with the salons and opening those salons, correct?
Yeah, it was that and also my parents. So my parents, the one thing that they had outside of their primary home was they bought a vacation home because as a family, we couldn't afford to go on really expensive trips or travel the world, right? But we had a beach house down in Myrtle Beach. And I think my parents might have bought that beach house when maybe I was like 10 or 12. We used to go down there every single year. That was our only vacation because that's what we could afford. And I saw my parents have the opportunity to make money on that because when we weren't using it, they were renting it out. It was interesting because they bought it at a killer price. Actually, I just helped them sell it a few months ago and they're capitalizing on it. So it's definitely come full circle for sure. But yeah, they had this beach house and when we weren't using it they were renting it out and they were making good money and it paid the mortgage and it paid the bills and it gave them a little extra cash in their pocket. So that was something that helped them support their lifestyle. And actually, my mom does a lot of traveling now all over the world. She's obviously retired and can do that, but that income helped her to do some of the things that she loved to do, which is travel. It helped them to retire at ages that you would typically retire at and still have something left in the bank at the end of the day. So that was the other piece of the real estate side that I had already had a taste of and just put two and two together. And it just made sense for me.
First of all, thank you for laying that out because what I'm getting from this conversation is the fact that you not only were given the opportunity through your salon and doing the hair and stuff, it seemed like at every challenge or every obstacle that came up, you made a course correction, like how you wanted to work, how you wanted to earn a living, what you wanted to do to have these certain constraints in place. But I think what's more telling is the modeling that you had from your parents. And what I mean by that is you saw your dad's dissatisfaction with his job. You saw your mom limited by her income, but loving her job. And so I could see the calculations that you may have been making at the time, even if they were unconscious, where you were deciding, okay, this is the plus column, this is the negative column. So I want to find my lane based on what's being modeled to me. And when you gave the example of the beach house in Myrtle Beach and how your parents leveraged that financially to kind of fill the gap for them to make that something that they could have throughout the whole, pretty much most of their life if they got it when you were a young person, and the whole family got to enjoy it. So I can really see how the modeling helped you shape your direction, plus the choices. But I think the thing that stands out most for me of what I know about you is your work ethic is incredible. I mean, I still to this day, I'm amazed at what you can produce and the attention that you give to not only your clients, but to the businesses. And you have had a roller coaster of excitement and valleys in your business. And we're going to get to that in our additional interviews. But I'm just, I mean, this is like a real treat for me, Jen, to, hear you tell these stories because it's helping me see more of why you function so successfully the way that you do today. So let's go ahead and pick up at that real estate. As you got your real estate license, okay? And you were in Pennsylvania at the time, correct?
Yes.
So you had to go do their exams and get through all that, which is, from what I understand, not an easy thing to do. Where did you start? I mean, a lot of people who want to get into real estate, and this is a generalization based on my perspective, are typically lazy people. And they like to just sell a couple of houses and make their commissions and perhaps work in a firm like Century 21 or Keller Williams or whatever, one of those kind of typical brokerage firms. And I don't see you necessarily doing something like that. But with your work ethic and the interest in real estate, I could see some real exciting things happen. So walk me through, what were some of the first things that you were confronted with as well as successful with as you started that first year, 2, 3 of having your real estate license?
Yeah, so because I was still pregnant at the time, right, I was actually able to go to an actual real estate school. I studied at Scott White, which I believe is still in existence today. But we're talking 2009, right? This was just a little bit ago. So at that time, I was able to actually go to school. And it's funny, you're talking about lazy agents. You don't need a brain to get a real estate license. There's just you just need to be smart enough to memorize some stuff and pass the test.
There you go.
So we're being honest.
If we're going to be honest, yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned my mom and some of my foundations. There was something else that was really, really instrumental in my young learning from my mom. And it was always surround myself with people smarter than me, right? People that I aspire to be like and to keep learning, never stop learning. The one that has the most education in the room about whatever you're talking about. You don't have to be the smartest in everything. You have to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you in other areas. But if you're going to talk about something, you've got to be the know-it-all about that subject. So educate yourself and surround yourself with people smarter than you. And I took that to heart. I truly took that to heart. I watched my mom do it. She went from her degree to grad school, and then she would always, throughout her entire career, she always was doing extra education every summer. So like most teachers would take off every summer. Not my mom. She was doing more education because that more education made her better at what she was doing. And it gave her a higher salary every year because of that. Education was always a big part of my foundation. And although it wasn't a college education, it was education in whatever I was trying to master. So I took the opportunity to go right to school, and I sat in a classroom and I went all in. And for me, that was a good learning opportunity. I mean, you can take your real estate license online, and you could have back when I got it, but I don't learn very well by just listening and reading. I want to physically be there. I want to be involved in the conversations. I want to be in the side banter, right, that happens in these classes. And for me, that was really valuable. So I went to school, and tunnel vision. It was about mastering what I was learning. I ended up getting my license before I had the baby. And then as soon as I had the baby, I immediately went into a franchise. And at that time, again, we're talking 2009, real estate looks very different today than it did back then.
Let's take a picture for a moment. So in 2009, we had just come out of the mortgage crisis, the housing boom and then drop. So it was like a virgin territory, and everybody was really cautious from the standpoint of mortgage financing, how the government was regulating all of the government-led types of financing. And then, of course, the adjustable rate mortgages were like, nobody was touching those. It was crazy time. I remember that time.
Yeah, it absolutely was. It was by far the worst time to enter into real estate, but this is what Jennifer does. She just likes to do the hard things, right? So.
I was just going to say, well, that sounds like something you would choose that on purpose.
Listen, I
Plus
didn't do it on purpose.
Which is even crazier. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I didn't do it on purpose. You can say I was naive. I didn't know enough about it. I was still learning. But yeah, and that's exactly what it was. It was on the backside of some really awful things in the real estate market. And, it was a very, very tough time to do anything. But I ended up going to a franchise, brick and mortar, because again, back at that time, you physically went into an office. Agents don't go to offices today. There's hardly any brick and mortar still around, but
it's crazy.
You used to go to an office. You used to go into the office. There used to be things like floor time, they called it, where you would have to sit there and answer the phones. It was crazy, but you would go to the office and you would work, and everybody would be in the office, and sometimes there was teams that would form. You'd learn from other people, but you went to an office. There was usually a broker there, and the broker was there to provide you education or help you with anything that you were struggling. Real estate was very much a sales position, but you don't necessarily know that when you leave school. You think it's glitz and glamour because that's the way it's hyped up in the media, but it's not. It's tough. You go to school, you get your license. It's like, rah, rah, I got my license. Yay for me. And it's like when you get your driver's license and then you got to get behind the wheel for the first time. And it's like, wait, how do I do this again? That's exactly what it was. So I got my license. I signed up with a brokerage. I go into the office the next day and I'm like, what do I do now? It was crazy. It was crazy. You would get, if you were on floor time, you would get leads through calls that came in. And occasionally there would be leads that came in through the brokerage. But I was in a large brokerage. There was probably 35 or 40 agents. So why would little old Jennifer, who just got into the business, be awarded anything that was valuable? You got to work your way
Well,
up.
I don't know. In retrospect, looking back at how you kicked butt in the salon industry, I'd say, yeah, you probably ranked up there pretty quickly in that brokerage.
Yeah, I did. Because I wasn't going to let anybody stand in my way.
Yeah,
I did.
kick butt.
But I will say this: I almost quit, and I'm not a quitter. But there was 100% a moment in time where I was like, I can't do this, because I was downsized, right? So there were months and months and months while I got my license, had the baby. You're talking 6 months before I even started working.
Right.
And then I didn't have my very first sale for 6 months later. So it was an entire year.
Which is pretty typical, right? Because it's so relationship driven and obviously based on how the brokerage was set up as well.
Yeah, I mean, the sales pitches are very different, right? What the world tells you is that you go and you immediately start working and it's glitz and glamour and it's all these things, but it's not. It was an entire year before I even had one check. And like I said, I was the breadwinner. So this was a very trying time. And we couldn't pay our bills. And, I was so depressed and so frustrated.
That's hard.
And I just couldn't make it happen fast enough. It was almost like it was outside of my control. I mean, I was doing everything. I was knocking on doors. I was doing what they call farming. I was cold calling people. I was partnering with others. I was doing literally everything I could. And then my very first deal that I had been waiting for months to close, for my very first check to finally pay a mortgage or pay a bill, they started fighting. It was like a husband and wife. They started fighting. And there was a moment in time where they were going to cancel the transaction because they hated each other. And I'm just like, you people are jerks. Like, I'm like waiting on this. Like I have helped you all this time. I was
what a
trucking
test.
trucking you around in my car to help you find something. We finally find something. We get all the way to closing, and you two are bantering back and forth to the point that now you don't want a house. It was just, I mean, they ended up buying it. So that was the good news. And I couldn't even tell you what their names are today, but they bought the house, but it was so trying. And when I started to realize that my ability was going to be somewhat controlled by emotions of people that were buying and selling their homes, that didn't really sit well with me. So that was kind of the moment where I was like, listen, I can't wait another 6 months for a paycheck. I will literally lose my home that I had now 3 kids in. I will lose my home. It's not going to be, but I hunkered down, and I just said, you can't quit. You just you have to get through this. You got to find another way. You're not going to make up the difference in any quicker fashion. And I did just that. I hunkered down. I did more education. I actually got my license in New Jersey at the same time. And then I worked my way up, got my broker's license, so I just kept educating myself and trying to be the master at everything. And then there was one shiny moment, it's like if you picture like the heavens open up and the rays come down, right? That was my moment, right? I had this epiphany. I had this streak of luck. I don't know what you want to call it, but the heavens definitely opened up for me. And I was literally sitting in the office. I was the last one there. And there was a call that came in. So we had receptionists, and they would, obviously send the calls over to the agents after they answered the call. She was closing up for the night. It was like 7:00. Office closed. And this call came into the office, and she says to me, she says, Jen, her name was Krista. She says, Jen. I'm like, yes, Krista. She goes, I have a call on the phone. And I was like, okay, give it to me. Like, what is this? Like some kind of game we're playing? She goes, no, I actually don't know that you want to talk to this guy. This guy sounds like a real jerk on the phone. And I was like, well, listen, I'm the only one here and I have to make money. So just give me the damn call. Like, I'll take it. You can go home. I'll lock the door, And that's exactly what happened. She gave me the call. She went home. And I was still in the office for probably another half hour to an hour because the guy on the other end changed my life.
Oh,
I
can't wait to hear
know.
that.
I didn't know at the time that this was going to
Yeah.
happen. I was starving. I had no choice but to just not give up, right?
Well,
But he wasn't
before you
Go
get
ahead.
into that story, I want to save
Sure.
that for our next episode because we're at time. But I am super excited to hear about this because the way you set this up, and I apologize to the listener for stopping it here, but you're going to have to wait till the next episode. But this is such good stuff because I want to dig into what was going on with you, Jen, when this transition happened, when this, holy light came down from the sky and struck you and said, ding, it's time for things to go better. And I think that's a really pivotal moment, and I want to take our time to explore it. So are you okay waiting until the next episode to get into that one?
Sure.
All
Absolutely.
right, sounds great. I love it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
That's it for now. If passive income from real estate investments plays a role in your long-term investment strategy, this show is for you. Thanks for listening. And for more in-depth resources, please head over to growingempires.com.